Welcome to the Own My Life podcast. I'm Abi Thomas, and it is a joy to be with you as we meet amazing women who've all been through the Own My Life course, a 12-week course which enables women who've been subjected to abuse to regain ownership of their lives. Joy is a key value for us here at Own My Life, so be aware you will hear painful stories of many types of abuse, but you will also hear a lot of joy. You may realise as you listen that you or someone you know needs help or support to get safe. The National Domestic Abuse Helpline is 0808 2000 247, and if you have concerns that a man is behaving in an unsafe way to a partner, you could contact the Respect Perpetrator phone line, and all these details are in the show notes. Welcome back to the Own My Life podcast. It is great to be back with you. And if you're just joining us, where have you been? I'm online today with Natalie Collins. How is sunny Sunderland today?
Well, it's sort of grey. As you can hear from my voice, I've not been 100%, so I'm a bit warbly. But it's the sun's sort of peeking through, and it's still a joy to be here, even if I'm doing my sort of Barry White. Sound a bit croaky, a bit croonery. But yes, it's all good here.
Good. You're feeling a bit better?
Yeah, I am, thankfully.
On the mend. Good. Okay, so the format we've gone with in the previous episodes, the last 6 episodes, which if you haven't listened to yet, go and enjoy. You're really amazing women that we've been able to spend time with. So the 6 women that we've spoken to in previous episodes have done the Own My Life course, which is a 12-week course, which you wrote, Natalie.
Yes, whoop whoop.
And as part of that course, each week you ask the participants to choose a favourite something. And this week, my question for you is, what is your favourite time of day?
Oh, I love the morning. I love getting up, going for a swim, first coffee of the day. I only have one coffee a day, actually. So my only coffee of the day. That sense of everything's fresh again. Whatever's gone on the day before, we're always only one step away from being in the right direction, which I think is an amazing thing about being a human being. And so there's something about the morning. I'm not I'm not somebody who likes to get up massively early. I'm not a morning person in that sense. But I think my favourite part of the day is that you wake up and every day we have an opportunity to walk towards our best selves, to step in a different direction than maybe we have. And that's a really beautiful invitation, isn't it, every morning?
I love that. That's very profound.
I don't even when I'm not very well.
Even when you're sick.
Maybe this is it. Maybe it's some sort of maybe there's a correlation.
Well, I had my 5th coffee of the year yesterday, which is probably the 6th coffee of my life.
Wow. Do you not like coffee?
No, I'm essentially still a child. I don't drink tea or coffee. But I really enjoyed it. I think it was because I had a good coffee.
Oh, yeah.
I think I've spent years, rejecting bad coffee, and now I've been introduced to nice coffee.
Yeah, instant coffee is a no-no. It has to be good filter coffee.
So there you go. Breaking news. Coffee number 5. So for today's episode, it is a bonus episode, because I had a little trip, a fun trip, really, down to New Scotland Yard, right opposite Parliament. It was lovely. It was a beautiful day. And after the interview, Viran took me up to the top of New Scotland Yard, and I had a look over at where the London Eye is, and it was lovely.
Wow, fancy day.
I know, it was very, is it bougie? Is that the word? It was very bougie.
I love it.
But before that, I had the absolute privilege of meeting Detective Sergeant Viran Wiltshire and Helen, who's chosen her own name, who took part in the Own My Life course in her workplace as a member of the Met Police staff. So we're going to listen to that interview now. Detective Sergeant Viran Wiltshire, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And Helen, who is also a serving officer and whose name we've changed. Welcome to the Own My Life podcast.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. Viran, can we start with you? You have been in the Met Police for 25 years, mostly in public protection work. So last year you received the King's Medal for your work around domestic abuse. So tell me about why you got that award. Yes, Helen is cheering you on. This is great.
So back in 2019, I joined the Central Domestic Abuse Policy team. So I had oversight of our public-facing policy. However, I noticed that there was nothing for our employees referencing it. It was a very, very small paragraph, but no actual response or actions that need to take place. So I teamed up with Everyone's Business at the time, run by Hestia, and from that we created our own standalone domestic abuse policy for our staff and officers. And then I advocated to have what we call an IDVA, an independent domestic violence advocate, specifically for our staff and officers. And what we found is in the first few months there were 40 referrals to this service, which showed its need, and that service is still running now. In fact, it's grown, and we now have an independent domestic and sexual violence advocate for our officers and staff, which is available to any employee working for the MPS.
I know in your public facing work you also work with people who are at risk of violence and abuse, but this work is very specifically with officers and staff here at the Met. Is that something that you think surprises people, that you face this in the workplace?
Yeah, I think it does actually. I think because we are officers or work for the Met Police, I think often there's an assumption that we should know better. We know what abuse looks like, but actually what we found is it was just that some didn't. Some didn't know that they were potentially in abusive relationships, or they came from the point where thinking, I want to reach out to that service, but that service isn't for me, and I don't want to take someone else's place. That's where it was much needed, and that's what our staff and officers were telling us, is that they needed a service that they could refer themselves to that understood about the barriers of working for the police and being a victim of abuse. Because when you put those layers in, there's so many additional barriers for them.
But why did you personally become passionate about this area of work?
I've always wanted to make sure that the people I work with are supported. And when I saw them not being empowered, when I saw the fact that they were choosing to leave the service rather than be supported, I didn't think that was great really for not just them, but for the whole organisation. We can't exit everybody who is suffering abuse. 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6, 7 men. We make up the public, and it was really needed. Someone came to me and made a disclosure, and we had a real long discussion about it, about what support wasn't available for them, what barriers they'd faced, why wasn't there a policy in place for them, why wasn't there a service in place for them. And being responsible centrally, I did feel there was some responsibility that the organisation also needed to do something about it.
How did the Oh My Life course become part of your work here at the Met Police?
Sam Ryan, who co-leads HEAL DA with me.
Tell me what HEAL DA is.
Oh, yeah. HEAL DA is helping employees affected or living with domestic abuse. I know it's very long, but that's the point. We couldn't fix sometimes issues for them, but we could certainly help our employees. And I think it kind of goes both ways. The name HEAL means something. It's healing as part of their journey. I've forgotten the question.
Tell me about Oh My Life. Why is that?
How did that
join?
Great, yeah. So I'd heard about the recovery programme, and then Sam successfully advocated for Met Friendly to fund 2 facilitator courses. Samantha and I went on those facilitator courses, became, I think, one of the first facilitators in policing to deliver the course internally, specifically to officers and staff. We had great feedback. We're planning our 4th course already, and we've had such success from it, in the sense that our IDVA is crisis-led. These officers and staff are then expected to return to work. But actually, we know the journey of domestic or sexual abuse can be up and down. So this gave them that chance to empower themselves and meet other women who have potentially experienced what they've gone through, and then they're not alone. And it's not surprising everyone I speak to feels they are alone. And also about educating line managers of these staff members who are doing the recovery programme.
What is it that makes the Oh My Life course so special?
I like how it's broken down with each sessions. It gives people a chance to process each session in almost bite-sized chunks, as opposed to overwhelming them with too much information in one hit. It gives them breathing space over the 12 weeks. It allows the women to naturally form friendships within those as well during the course. It's not just sometimes about their personal journeys as well. I've noticed that we've had success with women seeking promotion or lateral development as well within the organisation. It's something they would have never thought of before, but because they feel safe and come out of the course confident, they then take those steps.
Brilliant. So Helen, let's move to you. Tell me a little bit about you. What's your connection to Own My Life?
So I was lucky enough to go on the Own My Life course with Viran a few months ago now. I saw it advertised and I thought it sounded great, something that could really help my healing journey, and it really has.
You also now refer staff and others, you're an ambassador. What was your experience like and that made you feel you're confident to recommend this to other people?
I definitely noticed an increasing confidence both in myself and the other women that I did the course with. We ended up forming like a really nice group actually, both inside and outside of the course towards the end, and I could really see how people were just moving further along their journey. And like Viran said, people who previously were very, very shy and very introverted were sort of coming out and going for more opportunities like promotion, and that was so lovely to see people heal, and I felt it myself as well.
What were some of the parts of the course that really struck home to you?
I think some of the parts of the course where we were talking about different types of abuse. So I read an interesting statistic not that long ago, and it was something like some abusers are only abusive 20% of the time. I'm afraid I don't have the source for that. I should find that. But I thought that was so interesting, and I think that's probably comes into why it can be so difficult to recognise abuse, because I think it's very easy to make up excuses and think, oh, well, they're not abusive all the time. Sharing experiences and hearing other people's experiences of different types of abuse there are, sometimes we're quite constrained to the legislation that's in place, but actually abuse, I think, is much, much wider actually than the current legislation provides for. So recognising, first of all, that you are a victim survivor of domestic abuse, I think is the first step to healing, and that's something that came out during that course, which was really helpful.
We know there's many barriers faced by women who were abused by a partner anyway to getting help. What are some of the additional barriers that are faced by serving officers or staff here at the Met?
I think personally, for me, shame. As police officers, I think we expect ourselves that we should recognise abuse and feel embarrassed that maybe we're going through that. I felt embarrassed that I was going through that, thinking, why can't I sort this out myself? I managed to sort out so many things for other people in my day job. Why is it so difficult? So I think that's a huge barrier. I firmly believe that abusers benefit from victims' silence, and I think having this as an opportunity to meet with and speak with other victim survivors gave us back our voice, and there's power in that, and I think that was definitely another step in the healing process.
Fantastic. And Viran, what would you say to that question? What are some of the additional barriers that are faced by officers and staff here?
Yeah, it's potentially thinking about career progression, what roles they want to do. For example, if they wanted to go and work in the firearms command and they might be seen as weak, having been a victim of abuse. Again, like the shame and embarrassing, or their teams finding out, it's then not confidential for them anymore. That line managers will think that they can't go out and deal with cases or investigations. It's almost I want to liken it to the fact that, they have their abuser and then almost we end up re-abusing them by taking control of them, and they potentially might get moved out of the role that they're actually very happy in as well. So all the additional barriers they'll be thinking about before even coming forward.
And many people in this job meet their partners here. What additional layers does that add? Is that a question that you can answer, Helen?
Absolutely. I noticed it on the course. There were an awful lot of overlap between suspects of abuse who were also working in the same organisation, and I think that presents another barrier, doesn't it?
The potential repercussions of that is if your partner then loses their job, that then has a financial impact on you. There's all those many, many layers that are perhaps more complex. What does happen if you discover that a perpetrator of abuse is working for the police force? How would you progress that? I guess it depends on how that information comes to you as well.
Yeah, so we do have our professional standards team. So if it comes to my attention, if someone disclosed to me and their perpetrator also works for our organisation, then there will be a referral to our professional standards. So you almost have a parallel investigation running with professional standards who will lead on the conduct, and then the criminal side if that's being reported to, and HEAL DA comes in and we provide holistic support for them throughout that journey.
So if a woman revealed on the course, would that be enough for it to go forward? How do you deal with the confidentiality issues there?
Yeah, so it's one of those difficult ones, and it's often I get asked that all the time because we work for the police, and therefore if someone makes disclosure of a crime, we must record it in accordance with Home Office counting rules. Actually, it depends on what they're disclosing to me. It might be reported already to another force area, depending on where their home is, and we manage it with them on a case-by-case basis. If it's something I feel we need to record, I let them know that it will be. But the choice is theirs about where they go next with providing statements, because, you know, we can't force someone just because they work for the police to provide a statement. What we do is we help them along that journey and navigate each step with them. We just remind them they're not alone. If they're unsure of anything, we're always there to answer that question for them. What we do is we want to get them the help. So we get the safeguarding in place first, and then we say the next steps happen, slow time, and we make sure they're included in those choices.
Mm. And have you had any successes in bringing perpetrators to justice?
In that sense, yes, we know that there's been staff and officers being exited from the organisation. I'm probably going to steal a quote from Sharon Baker from Avon and Somerset, who often quotes about making the environment hostile to perpetrators, and that's what we're trying to mirror in the Met Police, is the fact that we want to make the environment hostile to perpetrators, and let's bring them to the highlight, right, as opposed to victim survivors, because they are there and they are, you know, working hard in their journey. But if we make it difficult for those, then they won't remain in an organisation where we don't want them.
What are some of the things that you're doing here in the Met to make it a hostile environment for perpetrators? It's a really great phrase, isn't it?
It is a great phrase. We have lots of reporting outlets, anonymous reporting, a lot more support and understanding. There's been some training that's gone out to all officers. And I think that really helps just identify what abuse can look like, which then in turn, I think, helps victims of abuse come forward to share their stories, and then they are supported. So on the course that we were on, I didn't notice people making disclosures of new incidents, but people were becoming more comfortable talking about what they had experienced, so things that had already been reported. But by being able to signpost additional support like the IDFA, I think really then went forward to strengthen the next stage in the case. So I'm fairly confident that we'll see more prosecutions come from that. I think watch this space really in terms of the success of signposting those resources.
I'm interested in the idea of collusion. It's something that's brought up in the Own My Life course, something perhaps that is not obvious in work around perpetrators of abuse. I imagine this is a heightened risk when people work for the police with their partner, perhaps working in the force as well. Perpetrators of abuse might be surrounded by colleagues who might not understand that they're even colluding with an abuser. What do you think about collusion? Is it something you're able to communicate more about?
So yeah, it happens when you're working close-knit teams. If it's, if the perpetrator happens to be on the same team as the victim, then that can take place. People will take sides. Often there's unhelpful language used in the sense that I've never seen them behave like that, or they've always been a good worker, almost minimising the abuse. So we know collusion can take place in many forms as well. And the sense, like going back to what I said before, we might move the victim survivor out of a role might have been performing as opposed to moving the perpetrator. And then it almost becomes like, oh, we can't take sides, you can't move the perpetrator. There's been no finding as such yet. They've not been convicted or anything yet. And they're the kind of bits of collusion that often gets missed, as opposed to the more overt stuff that can take place.
In your public-facing work, Viran, how has the Own My Life course impacted how you work with people in the community who've been subjected to abuse? And how are you sort of trying to extend the reach of Own My Life, I guess, beyond the staff here?
Yeah, absolutely. Bizarrely, it has an influence on other forces who then also want to take up doing this course internally. We work nationally with other forces as part of survivor networks, and as opposed to sort of a national police perpetrated domestic abuse focus. And so we know other forces become interested, and actually other blue light services become interested around this area too. And with the public, it's a course we can reference So it's something, of course, we can let them know about exists. Often they've never heard of it, what it entails, what it means. The journal they get with it as well, that can help them, that there'll be like-minded women who's potentially been through what they've experienced too, and it's done by an external partner as well. Therefore, it's not police-led in that sense externally.
So let's talk about culture here in the Met Police. There's been some really high profile cases of misogyny, sexism, racism, violence against women in the Met Police. What progress do you see being made in shifting the culture here? And I love that idea of sort of reversing the culture. You're building a new culture within that small group. Is that able to expand, do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what we're doing. And I think every time there are these new things that are brought in, it's another change in the culture, a positive change in the culture, bringing more awareness to it, dealing more rapidly with perpetrators of abuse. There's no place for them in this organisation. We don't want them here. And I think there are more avenues to recognise abusers and get them out. But I think that culture change of creating our own networks has been really positive and really wonderful. And I know as a group on my course, we've all stayed in contact, and that's been lovely.
Do you feel a shift in culture in the wider Met Police? Do you think things are moving in the right direction, or are there big frustrations for you?
I'm seeing positive changes in the culture. So my own lived experience is that I am seeing that positive change. I am seeing a lot more support from people, a lot of he for she allies. So this isn't just obviously victims only being female. I think it affects everybody. And I'm seeing a real shift in people recognising that and supporting everybody.
The idea of owning your own life, of perpetrators believing they have a sense of power and entitlement, can that sort of shift of mindset help when you're working with people in the community who've also been subjected to abuse?
I think so. I think it gives us a sense of empathy when we're dealing with other victims of abusers, and more open to the idea of different lived experiences, different types of abuse, and what we might have experienced ourselves. So I think that definitely helps when we're talking with members of the public with that sense of compassion and empathy. I know certainly that's how I would like to represent myself when I'm talking to members of the public. I think it also helps internally as well, actually, in how we're talking to our colleagues, the confidence that we're gaining ourselves. I think it certainly helped me bring the best version of myself into work every day, and I think that benefits the people I'm working with and benefits the organisation as well. So I think it can only be a positive thing.
In the first 6 episodes of the podcast, I've spoken to 6 incredible women who've been through the Own My Life course. Some of them had positive experiences with the police, some of them had very negative experiences when they reported that they were being abused. What would you say to them about how culture is shifting?
Yeah, I think this is the thing that takes place. Sometimes it takes time, and slowly we have seen a huge improvement in victim blaming language not taking place in reports anymore, and that does make a difference to the next person reading it. So when a reporting officer takes your report and they're the first person you meet and it gets passed to the investigator, with the removal of that victim blaming language has a great positive impact on the investigator reading it and that victim survivor's response they're going to get, and potentially then if their journey is going to go to the Crown Prosecution Service, and that prosecutor reading that report with all the victim blaming language removed out of it. So we've seen huge positives in that steps. We've also seen that HEAL DA is embedded in the frontline leaders programme, which is your sergeants and equivalent police staff. It's in the middle line leaders, which is inspectors and above and equivalent police staff. Between April and it'll be the end of November, 23,000 officers and police staff would have received domestic abuse training as part of their 3-day course that takes place and includes HEAL DA. So therefore that kind of shift is happening because they're all learning about it. They're all potentially sometimes even hearing these things for the first time, what HEAL DA is. Know for their own, they might not realise what their colleagues might have been going through or experienced or how it feels to them. And we use victim survivors' voices around them. And that's the education piece they take away, is making them understand how a peer, if they disclose what to do next, what they can do, because Sam and I are just 2 people. So we give them the gift and knowledge of saying, if someone discloses to you, this is what you can do, this is what's available for them, then when they go out to respond to members of the public, they're going to understand it again a lot better. We didn't have a policy before. we didn't have an IDVA or ISVA before. Heal DA has only just begun its journey in 23, and look, here we are today doing a podcast about it.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What's one sort of thing that stuck out to you from the course that you would love every officer who's going out to meet somebody who's been subjected to abuse? What one thing would you love them to take with them? Yeah, I'll let you both answer that.
I think the empathy, to understand how traumatic that experience can be, and to give people the time to talk about it and to just listen to their experience and validate it.
I think it's key is just being patient and listen, and that their recall around events might be slightly different around things as well, so just that patience and empathy.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about race and culture? What are some of the additional barriers that women from minoritized racial or cultural backgrounds might face? Do you want to speak to that, Viran?
Yeah, sure. This is where we talk about, the additional layers that come in. For example, I am British Asian. My husband is from Ireland and he's white. So we have a dual heritage marriage and a daughter. And then we're both police officers. And then I'm female, and you have to think of all these layers that come into play. So there could be assumptions made. So if I was disclosing internally, they might be thinking about the domestic abuse and not about the honour-based abuse. That might also be layered on top of it as well. So it's all those additional barriers that can take place. The imbalance of power potentially as well, if it is internal, if it's police perpetrated, that can take place. And that's another layer on top. So it's making sure we understand all these layers exist and being really just asking questions. I don't want people to be nervous about asking questions for colleagues. Sometimes they think, oh, well, then I'm tipping into affecting investigations. You need to ask the questions in order to get the answer from the victim survivor as well, and not focus on what's just happened, but ask the right questions. What does a typical day look like? What does a typical week look like for you? Then you're going to understand what my week and day looks like, as opposed to what's just happened now, because I'm just going to tell you what's happened just now.
Mm. Oh, that's a really helpful question. I love that. What does your week look like? What would your advice be to women who feel they wouldn't be heard or understood if they were to report that they were being subjected to abuse at home? Women who are serving officers or staff here at the Met?
I'm going to say be persistent. Come to Samantha and I. No one has access to our mailbox. It's just Samantha and I. Reach out to our IDVA, who doesn't work for the Met Police and therefore doesn't have access to our emails, and we don't have access to their account. So you can talk to them in confidence. Reach out to the IDVA and ISVA and they will support you. Doesn't matter where you live. Don't have to live within London. Doesn't cost you anything, and you can speak to them safely.
And what successes have you seen from officers or staff?
So one particular success is an officer who, when first approached me, was going to resign from the organisation.
Why did she feel she needed to resign?
She just felt she wasn't supported, wasn't protected, her voice wasn't being heard, and that there was absolutely nowhere left to go apart from leave a job she absolutely loved doing and was good at. So that was heartbreaking to hear her say that she was just going to resign around things. And I would never tell someone not to resign. That's their choice. What I asked her was just trust me, or trust the process with me, and she was willing to do that. And we navigated what we needed to do for her, advocated for her, and she then successfully became a full-time detective. She successfully secured specialist roles. And if I look back to sort of less than probably 18 months ago and where we were to where she is now, it's amazing. She's advocated for other victim survivors in the team she's been in and appealed to Crown prosecution decisions and police-led decisions and said, actually, I think we're not right here. I think we should try this, and successfully advocating for their cases to be appealed and passed through, and then these perpetrators be charged. We don't speak for the victim survivors. What we do is try and remove the barriers so they can speak and advocate for themselves.
Could you imagine this course being used in other workplaces, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a conversation with the London Fire Brigade. It can absolutely be used in most workplaces. You know, once you're trained as that facilitator, you know, Natalie's amazing in that training and how you deliver it safely and that ongoing support. It's not just you become a facilitator and that's it.
One of the really key parts of the course is the sisterhood aspect. Helen, tell me about the sisterhood aspect.
It's twofold, really. I think one is that we've created on our course a really lovely network. We all found out we've developed a sort of mutual respect for Taylor Swift. I don't know how that even came up into the course, but it did. And so we have like planned outings together to celebrate that. And I think that's just absolutely beautiful that we've got that network there. I'd be really interested to see some studies on the positive impact on health. I certainly know that I noticed a real positive change in my own health from having completed the course. And I think abuse, certainly for me, had left me very insular, and I'd neglected other parts of my life, eating healthily, exercising, that kind of thing. And having the strength to address all of those things, I feel so much better physically having done the course, which is a kind of unexpected benefit, really. And again, that feels part of the sisterhood, to be honest, that I think we've encouraged each other to come out of our shells, really, which is lovely.
We have seen some great positives of staff returning from sickness, not going sick anymore because they feel empowered to actually say what they need to say. So that silence, that we're not silenced anymore.
Excellent. And finally, what does it mean to you to own your life? The course is called Own My Life. As a woman in the Met Police, what does it mean to you to be able to say, I own my life?
Oh gosh, amazing. I think this morning I'll probably post something on LinkedIn about having been in the service for 25 years and being female and only 5 foot and Asian and the challenges that brings. But, you know, kind of look where we are, look at what I've achieved. And that's what it means for me in the service, is that females have achieved all this.
Yeah, I love it. And what about you, Helen?
For me, it's having my power back, my confidence back, my health back, and just being able to be me again. I'm enjoying that.
It's been absolutely fantastic to meet you both. Thank you so much for giving me your time and for welcoming me here at New Scotland Yard.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Natalie.
Oh, how wonderful. Both women are just a beautiful conversation there, and hearing the difference Own My Life has made, and just so much credit to both women for all the work they're doing in their own lives and for other women. Amazing.
It was just, I've did the interview, I've edited the interview, and I've listened back to the interview, and still again, I just feel like what incredible women and what joy and what a course. I bore my friends and family by saying to them, everybody should do this course. But actually that was just a great reminder of why. Yeah. Like what fantastic testimonies they brought from the life changes it's given to the women that have been on the course, but also to the wider culture around them. Yeah, definitely. And I think that hearing from a workplace point of view, that sense of women going for promotion, women not resigning, women's health, and then that affecting them not having as many sick days. You know, we can think, oh, somebody feeling heard or listened to, or like feeling emotionally better. That's, I think often people assume that's what a course like this will do. It'll make people feel emotionally better. But the material reality of our lives is being in a job that we love, that gives us a sense of purpose and meaning, enables us to pay our bills, and not being sick and getting further on in our career. Those are incredibly important parts of being our best selves. And I think it's interesting for women particularly, because I think the workplace has traditionally felt very something that men have, like women are the family, you know, this is the private and public spaces have for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years been separated very much like that. And so I think the impact for women on having a supportive workplace, the impact for women on having a job that they're able to get promoted in, and the material transformation that for that woman, I think is not really well spoken about in the way that it would be understood for men. So I think, it's just incredible to hear that. And you know, hopefully there's HR departments around the country taking note that this is
meaningful and transformational. We've had a vision for a really long time to see workplaces, corporate workplaces, other places offering Own My Life online to women in, or for workplaces to come together and say, actually, in this business park, anybody who wants to come, or across, it needs to be a big enough space so there's women aren't feeling like the person I work with every day is now I have to speak, I have to have them in my community. That can be a bit of a barrier, but actually there is a real opportunity for Own My Life to materially enable workplaces to become safer, to become supportive, to really help women to move forward with their lives in the ways that were described here. I think there's very particular challenges that women in the police force face, but actually Own My Life can be accessed by women who are still with their abusive partner. And the challenge of doing that online is often you do it in the home, and so you can't attend an online Own My Life course if you're still with your partner. However, in the workplace you can, because you can do that during the workday. He doesn't need to know you're going. You can keep your journal at work, so there are real opportunities for workplaces to be part of the solution here in a material way. Like as Viran says, having a policy is your first step. Having a supportive manager and having somebody who is the champion, or in the police they've got an IDFA. So having somebody that people can go to in that crisis obviously is the next step, but having that ability to support women on that journey to owning our lives, not in a crisis way but in that ongoing way, is an incredible gift and an incredible part of the responsibility that employers can take to be part of the solution here.
Natalie, we've come to the end of what has been the first season of the Own My Life podcast. Who knows? Maybe we'll be back. We'd love to be, I think. Would we?
Yes, definitely.
What would you like people to take away who've listened to this podcast? What would be some sort of positive actions that people could take? I guess people listening from lots of different circumstances.
Yeah, I think listen and learn from each of the women in this podcast. We've heard from 7 women and Viran as a facilitator, and every single woman is full of wisdom and knowledge and has got something that lots of things that we can learn from. So I think in each of these episodes, listening to and hearing from, embedding that into our own sense of how we see the people around us. I think one of the things that Viran and Helen really spoke to was this sense of, it can't be me, I can't be being abused because I'm a police officer. That's something that happens to those people. And I think we all have this idea that women who are abused, they're those sort of women, they're weak and they're fragile and they're probably quite reserved and quiet, and they're probably in a corner shaking and they're not able to stand up for themselves, and they're not strong and capable and competent women. And that is just not true. That those women myth about the people who are subject to abuse makes it really hard for us to see that this is being done to us, makes it really hard to see that this is going on for our family, our friends, our colleagues, people in the local community, our faith communities, wherever it is. We're not looking and going, that could be going on for that person. And so I think what each of the women in this series have shown us is that there isn't any such thing as those women, that it's us women, any of us might be being subject to this. And so that sense of breaking out of that idea of who is abused will then enable us to much more effectively see what could be going on in our vicinity, in our communities, in our families, friendships, workplaces. And then once we smash those women myth, we can then really start to bring those lessons that each of the women have taught us through these different episodes. We can bring that to bear in our own relationships, in our own communities.
Brilliant. Was there anything else that stuck out to you from the interview that we haven't spoken about?
Yeah, I think that sense of creating a hostile environment to perpetrators, it's really important that we hold on to and recognise the ways that abuse is beneficial for abusers. That message that we often get that somebody abuses because hurt people, that somehow this abuser is a tortured, wounded soul. And so when we learn about that abuser's behaviour, that essentially we end up reserving our empathy and consideration for the perpetrator. And we don't think we do that because we often would see this kind of monster narrative. Oh, he's a monster, he's killed somebody or he's abused somebody. But actually, the monsters only exist when they're strangers, when it's somebody we know, when it's our colleague, when it's our family member or friend. Suddenly, oh, well, are you sure it's really that bad? Oh, well, he's a really good guy. Like, I can't imagine that what you're saying's happened is exactly how it happened. And so I think that until we fully understand how beneficial abuse is to abusers, he's getting someone who does whatever he wants whenever he wants. He's getting sex on demand. He never has to take any responsibility. He gets the status of being a good partner and a good parent while being absolutely horrific to somebody. And so that sense of creating a hostile environment to perpetrators, we need to be asking questions about what does that look like for my life? What are the environments I'm in? I can hear that in the police force, but what does it mean for my family? How do I create a hostile environment for perpetrators in my family, in my friendship group, in my workplace, in my church, in my mosque, in my wherever that place is, my neighborhood, in the street I live on? What does it look like to create a hostile environment when I go to the shop? Because we're all part of that. And so I think understanding, and we talk about this in Own My Life, the benefits of being abusive. Abuse is instrumental, not accidental. People abuse because it gets them what they want. This is a rule of human behaviour. We do what we do because it gets us what we want, because our life is better for the choices we make. And essentially, the only time we start to make changes is when our life is worse as it is than what it could be. And that's the rule of behaviour change 101, whatever it is, whether we're an abuser or not. And so that sense of how do we make abuse less beneficial? How do we create a climate in which that man, when he's being aggressive to his partner in public, experiences the public being unhappy with that? How do we make sure that when he comes around and starts slagging off his partner, we go, don't talk about it like that. Don't be saying that. Don't be talking about that person like that. I care about her and I don't appreciate that. How do we create a hostile environment? So I think that was something that feels really important. But you can't create a hostile environment until you understand what the abuser's mentality is. Because while you're still thinking, oh, he must be doing that because he's broken or sad or damaged or traumatized or stressed, when we understand he's doing that because it gets him what he wants, suddenly it becomes much easier to challenge him, because we're not affording him empathy that is not an accurate depiction of what's going on. So that would be the first thing.
Can I tell you something that happened to me, and you can tell me what you would have done? So I was in our local supermarket, and there was a man speaking to his partner in just a horrible way. And, you know, I always think in that circumstance, if that's what he's speaking to her like in public, like, I just dread to think. So I just waited till he'd moved a little bit away, and I just kind of said to her, just so when she would hear, I do not like the way he's speaking to you. And she was like, I know he's awful. I was like, well, if you, like, try and find a way to get out, was essentially the message I gave. But you talking about a hostile environment makes me think, should I have said something in his earshot? Like, what would you have done?
Yeah, I think there's a real question about what does it look like in a context of strangers. I think family and friends, I think we have the ability to challenge him more because there's a relationship there, because we're able to assess his risk to us, because the reality is we don't know how dangerous he is to us. In a man in a supermarket, if he's speaking to his partner awfully, we don't know what he's got convictions for. We don't know how dangerous he is. We don't know whether he's going to punch us in the face or punch her in the face. And the challenge is also that if we challenge him, it might force her to have to support him in opposition to us. And then rather than being an ally to her, we become the enemy, because very often, and this is what lots of people say, is when they challenge a perpetrator in public, their partner doesn't thank them for that. You know, like the partner's not like, oh, thank you so much for telling him he's awful. The partner's like, don't you do that to my Nigel? How dare you? Not all Nigels, obviously. But you know, that sense of like, within this situation, what do we do? And in that situation, she may know, if I don't support him and challenge this bystander who's trying to get involved, I'm going to have it when I get home. I know what is the best way to keep me safe, and if I don't do that, he is going to kick off when I get home, or he's going to punish the kids, or he's going to kick the dog. So I'm making these decisions which mean that I'm going to say to this bystander, who, if I'm really honest, is really kind and caring, I'm going to be telling her to F off or whatever else. So I think within that situation, the best thing we can do is try to validate her, because that's a much safer thing for us to do, and potentially it's much safer for her that we do that. So I think absolutely in that situation, trying to find a way to say to her, you matter and it's not okay what he's doing. If there's a way of him being aware that we think that too, then, you know, all the better. But I think in a stranger situation, the best thing we can do is, you know, that she will go away and for the forevermore there will be somebody who thought she mattered enough and thought what he did was bad enough, that she was worthy of somebody saying that a stranger saw that what he did was bad and a stranger saw that who she was mattered. And that is an incredibly important seed. One of the things that we say in Own My Life is that our job is to plant seeds. We can't make them grow. We can't force the plant to grow, the tree to grow. What we can do is scatter seeds, and that is a seed in her life. And it might grow somewhere now. It might lie dormant for a while and grow, but it also has to be contributed to by other seeds. What is her mum saying? What is her sister saying? What is her brother saying? What is his mum saying? What is his work colleagues saying? And so all of us are part of scattering those seeds for that woman's life. Hopefully those seeds will eventually grow into a sense of actually I'm able to leave, or I'm able to get the support I need, or, you know, that accountability comes for him. So I think in a sense we've got two roles. One is to her, to validate her, to affirm her, to tell her she matters, and one is to challenge him. And we can always affirm and validate her. We have to be mindful and wise about when it's appropriate to challenge and make visible the problems for him. I've stopped a train before when a man was being abusive to his partner on the train, and I stopped the train, and the police arrived, and, you know, she was...
Sorry. Backtrack. We need the context.
The context. So just like, stop the train. We're on a train. It was on an evening, late, you know, kind of not maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And this guy got on and he was behaving really aggressively to her. They were sat next to each other, and you could tell she was terrified of him. He was being really unpleasant, but saying he was quite quiet. It wasn't like you could hear what he's saying, but you could see she was terrified and that he was being really aggressive. And I was just watching this, waiting for an opportunity to do something. And this man, like, who was a bit closer than I was, stood up and said, are you all right, love? And that was it. I was straight up. And I was like, yeah, do you want to come and stand next to me? You look like you're a bit worried. And he grabs onto him, and he starts swearing, being really abusive to me, and this more to me than to the guy, calling me all sorts of misogynistic names. And I was like, right, because the thing is, once he starts attacking me, suddenly this is a public incident. Suddenly he is behaving in a way that I can act because I'm now the object of his harm. And obviously in a train, there is a sense of safety because there's lots of passengers around. You know, I was far enough away that he couldn't actually assault me. And really, in some ways, if he'd assaulted me, it would have really made it much easier for him to be held accountable for what he's been doing to her too. And at first she looked like she was going to move and sit with me. And then, you know, she realised that that's not going to be safe. And so she just kind of went into becoming his ally, you know, realised actually it's not safe for me to thank this woman or ask this woman for help. So I just stopped the train, and we stopped at the next platform, the next station. I don't think there was due to be a stop, because they don't just stop in the middle of nowhere. They stop at the next platform. The police arrived. They took her to one side, him to one side, and they went away together. There was no arrest. There was, you know, that wasn't some kind of big solution to that woman's problems. But actually we can't make decisions to intervene because it's going to change everything. We make decisions to intervene because we want that woman's life to be better. And now forevermore that woman knows that she mattered enough that someone stopped a train for her. She mattered enough that a guy stood up, and he knows that his behaviour was not acceptable, and that people saw that little minor amount of it that we could see and said this is not good enough, and we stopped the train because it was that bad. And lots of people would say, oh well, I'm not going to get involved because it didn't change anything. Well, you don't know what it changes. You've changed something because you've told her she matters, and he's telling her she doesn't matter. And if we want to do, when we're supporting women and when there's people in our lives, what we need to do is the opposite of what he does. When he tells us she's worthless, we need to be like, you are awesome. When he isolates her, we need to be like, I'm sticking around. I don't care how much you make me feel like I'm not welcome, how much you make her feel like guilty for having me as a friend, I'm staying around. We need, where he's saying you've got no choices except staying with me, we need to be like, do you know what, do you remember that you wanted to go to university? Do you remember that you're really good at painting? Or, you're such a good mom, or all those things. That what we need to do is, instead of just saying the opposite of him and expecting that, she's going to leave tomorrow, we need to do the opposite of him. And if he's telling her you've got to stay, well, telling her she's got to leave, we're just doing the same as him but saying a different thing. So how can we be the opposite and do the opposite and help her to know that she matters? And we heard earlier in a previous episode about a woman whose mum just stuck around. She got her own therapy so she could be there for her daughter. And I think that's what we need to be, is be the opposite that he is, and do things to help her know she matters, and plant those seeds and hope they go somewhere, for sure.
And also, I also think for that man on the train, like, he would do that again now. Like, he knows that he did the right thing, and everyone who saw that on the train saw somebody else. He's not just planted a seed in the woman that was being subjected to abuse, but also in each person on that carriage who's like, oh yeah, that's not okay.
Exactly. And that, do you know what, like, the world didn't end. He didn't assault me. So for anybody, any women like, oh, I can't challenge it because he'll hurt me, like, actually rarely will perpetrators, I'm not saying that won't ever happen, but perpetrators do what they do because it benefits them. It doesn't benefit them to punch a stranger, because they're going to get arrested, and unlike his partner, he's not going to be able to manipulate around. He didn't want that. So there's often this assumption, well, this man must be very dangerous because of what he's doing to his partner. Well, he does that because he's able to get away with it for lots of reasons. He's not going to get away with it if he punches me in a train. Like, really, I'm probably a lot safer than than in any other environment, really. So I think that sense of everybody seeing that, like, the world didn't end by us stepping in and getting involved, and hopefully it said something to her. And I think lots of people would look at that and go, oh, well, that was a big faff, not she just left with him, and oh, why did she do that? And actually, obviously that needs to be challenged, but there'll be some people there who might step up a bit more next time. And that's how we change cultures, a bit like Viran was saying. It's a policy, it's a support mechanisms, it's delivering the training about leadership and what is involved in supporting women and those who have been subject to abuse in that context. So I think it is, changing culture is really incremental, but culture is made up of all of us, and so it's made up of the choices we make. We're all part of the solution here. It's not somebody else's job, it's all of our jobs.
Natalie, it's been once again an absolute joy. Episode 7, smashed it. We are taking a break now. We may come back for series 2. We'd love to. But in the meantime, let's think about some practical things. So there may be various different people listening to this. There may be people who are starting to think, does this apply to me? I would love to get on one of these courses and find out more. I've got a few questions. Where would someone go to get onto a course?
Yeah, so if they go on to ownmylifecourse.org, and there's
your voice properly is getting poorly.
I know, like, I've been talking too much. ownmylifecourse.org. If you go on the contact menu, there's an option for find a course, or we can maybe provide the link for that, actually. So ownmylifecourse.org/find a course. You can search for your postcode or your location and find out where the course is running locally to you. There is occasionally we can offer online courses if there's no courses available in your area. So you can always email or use our contact form on our website to find out about where your local course is running. All our Own My Life courses are run by local services. Absolutely brilliant domestic abuse services, sexual violence services, women's centres, social care contexts, loads and loads of different places, and we are incredibly grateful that each of those choose to run the course. These are brilliant practitioners, brilliant organisations who are seeking to make the biggest difference to women's lives, and will be able to offer other support as well. So a bit like for Viran, that sense of there's an IDVA and an ISVA in the support for officers alongside that. So it's not only about getting access to an Own My Life course. If women want to, there's potentially other support that they can get.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's if you feel that you want to explore this further for yourself. What about if you want to explore this in your workplace?
If you want to deliver Own My Life within a workplace, a bit like it's being done in the Met Police, contact us, info@ownmylifecourse.org, and we can have a conversation with you about what that would look like for your workplace and what would be practically possible, the best way to do this for different contexts. It may be about trying to identify a network so that you can offer it within a broader space. It may be that there's other ways, but essentially, practically what would happen is somebody would come on our training to train up as a facilitator to be able to deliver it, or it may be that if your workplace is in an area where an organisation already runs Own My Life, they may have a facilitator that they can provide on a freelance basis or on a consultancy basis to offer it in your context, which means that you also then can get that support for your employees through that organisation too. So there's either you can train up to deliver it internally, or you potentially can bring in somebody who can deliver it. We have a number of people who've trained up to run Own My Life who are experienced facilitators who can deliver it freelance too, so it may be that that's an option. So there's various options around delivering in a workplace, but there are stages to go through to ensure that it can be run safely and that it's done in a way that ensures well-being and safety for those who are accessing the course as well.
Okay, and finally, what about the men who, unfortunately, they're not going to go on the course because it's a course for women? How can men who I hope have really enjoyed this podcast series and have found it really helpful, how can they be of a good support to people and helping signpost people to the right places?
Yeah, so I think for men, it's about how much knowledge they've got, how much understanding they've got. One of the things I would say, lots of men will have a female partner who's been subject to abuse, which is a whole podcast series in itself, I'm sure. And I think that sense of one of the really important things is to prioritise her feelings and needs. That there is a sense that often men feel this need to be like, I'm outraged, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's like, actually, what does she need from you? What does she want from you? Listening, hearing, being supportive of the women in your lives, doing the opposite of the abuser. And whether that's for a friend, a family member, a partner, a colleague, doing the opposite, lifting her up, telling her she's great, supporting her ambitions and her hopes and dreams, showing her she's got choices, so that all of us can do that with every woman we know, whether a man or a woman. Also being aware of all the stuff I've just said about where women can access an Own My Life course, telling women this exists, sharing this podcast with people they know. And so a lot of it's about building knowledge and building literacy so that we can be a resource to those when we come across this, and being a safe person and actually challenging other men. If men are being sexist, misogynistic, if they're undermining about their partner, if they're trying to bring you along as an ally to their cause in being negative about women, negative about their partner, if they're not pulling their weight as partners, it's your job to remember your family's birthdays. It's your job to do the emotional labour. It's your job to get that sense of like, where's my socks? Where's my this? It's your job to know where everything in your house is, and actually challenge other men who seem to think it's somebody else's job. They're outsourcing their brain to someone else. It's about seeing yourself as being part of the solution, and that's not just a case of how you treat your partner or how you show up. It's about how you encourage other people to show up and treat the people in their lives too. So there's an awful lot that can be done. I can provide some books and resources that men might benefit from reading, and I think it is that sense of you can be part of the solution, and if you're not being part of the solution, you absolutely are part of the problem, whether you realise it or not.
And at the very beginning of every episode, we have mentioned the Respect Perpetrator phone line. What should someone do if they think, I think I might be a perpetrator?
Yeah, so if somebody's hearing about their own behaviour or about someone else's behaviour they know, this phone line is accessible to people who are worried about somebody they know being harmful. So I think it's important to know that. The Respect phone line is 0808 80 24 040. And that is the number to ring if people are concerned for their own behaviour or someone else's. And hopefully that will enable them to go on a journey to start taking responsibility and recognising what they need to do to make the best life for them, their partner and their kids, and for themselves.
Natalie, it's been a joy, an absolute joy. I've got to hang out with you. We've got to work on this together. Thank you so much. And Of course, as you'll hear again in the closing announcement, thank you so much to all the organisations who run this course, as you've already said, and all the women who make this course as fabulous as it is.
Yes, and thank you to everybody who's been on this journey with us. What a beautiful 7 episodes we've had together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Own My Life podcast. We want to say a huge thank you to all the organisations that run Own My Life in the UK and Ireland for everything you are doing to make women's lives better. And finally, to the Community Foundation North East, who have funded this podcast. We are so grateful.